Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to His Majesty's United Kingdom. We have a Conservative Party that opposes conservatism, a Labour Party that despises the working class, a Liberal Democrat Party that is neither liberal nor democratic, a Green Party that wants to abolish nuclear energy, a Nationalist Party that is pro-migrant, and the Reform Party who are incapable of reforming their own party. Nothing makes any fucking sense. The death of the Uniparty has given way to more radical political solutions which threaten to be productive, so naturally they are considered heresy by our political institutions whose strength is supposed to be their impartiality, despite the fact that the solutions proposed by each side, mass immigration and wealth inequality, are, once again, in theory, just two different sides of the same coin. We are locked into an asylum solution that makes so little sense it converts kindness into hatred, and if you go online to voice your confusion, you are denied your right to shitpost and given a heavier sentence than the actual crime on the rise throughout the nation that those same police could be tackling.
Gentlemen, this is Democracy Manifest.
Carried out by a man we voted in as a safe pair of hands until the next election, and the bloke turned out to be an authoritarian, minus the cult of personality.
It's NPC, non-player character. Main player character is your charismatic leader with loads of riz. He's not got that.
But most egregiously of all, he supports Arsenal despite the fact he is from Surrey. Nothing makes any fucking sense. But fear not, because today we'll be untangling this mess, and you would be surprised at just how straightforward a lot of these problems before us are to solve. Difficult, but straightforward. Insane times call for insane solutions, and I hope that by the end of this video, I can convince you that it's always darkest before the dawn. Whether you're a gay monkey or a racist monkey, Britain's future is brighter than you think. And where better to start with this positive vision for the nation than bringing back hate speech.
Not to be racist or anything, but Asian people.
Land of hope and glory, mother of the free, how shall we extol thee? Digital ID. You absolute fucking donkeys. An Englishman's house used to be his castle. Now I can't even wank in it without pretending to be a fucking North Korean. And you can only goon to the great leader so many times. Take it from me.
It's just him in all of these.
Speaking of VPNs, digital ID is supposed to be the solution to stopping these types of players hopping into the UK servers to farm gold, which transparently makes no sense when you look at the loopholes illegal migrants use for work. Just crucify anyone who employs them in Trafalgar Square on modern-day slavery charges. Do I have to spell this out for you? In the birthplace of liberal freedoms, we arrest more people a year for shitposting on the internet than the Russians, Belarusians, and Chinese combined. And keep in mind the populations of these countries and the nature of their governments. Just let that sink in. You see, I've been all over the political spectrum in my time. I've been on the left, and I've been on the right. Oddly enough, without my core beliefs ever really changing. They just keep moving the fucking goalposts. Now, don't get it twisted, dog. I am not some cringe centrist. I'm just politically homeless, resigned to the K-hole, licking balloon knots. And I find myself today in the same boat as most of you, completely and utterly disenchanted by both sides, left to roam the political wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights with nothing but a gram of fentanyl and a quarter gallon of stem cells, and it delivered upon me an epiphany, folks, and I'll share it with you now. They're all wankers. I never said it was a hot take. Party politics is a fucking cult. There is based and there is cringe. That is the only political constant to measure yourself against. And this is cringe, plain and simple. Now, I think we can all agree that if you are intentionally inciting violence on a public forum, clearly and deliberately, then you deserve to be sacrificed to Molag Bal. But the guidelines for this law are very clearly being abused. Now, this is overwhelmingly a right-wing concern at the moment, so naturally their opponents defend it. What, in the name of Thomas Bombadil, do you think will happen when the right-wing find themselves in power? It's a zero-sum game that betrays just about every one of our most sacred historic liberal values. Have some fucking sense. See, if you have ever been part of a diverse friend group, for example, then you will know nothing is more inclusive than partaking in healthy levels of racism. I genuinely advocate for good-humored xenophobia, if you couldn't tell from my channel by now. It is a very bad idea to make certain groups of people more socially protected than others. people will just call them gay. Now, in my opinion, I don't think Starmer is going far enough. If you're going to go down this road, you need to be in for a penny, in for a pound. If we're going to wank like North Koreans, we may as well live like North Koreans would be my policy. See, the internet has made people far too internationally minded, and we should not be acknowledging the uncivilized barbarians beyond our shores. American, French, Syrian, why are we paying lip service to their so-called existence? I am not promoting Britain first, I am promoting Britain only. Cease all contact with the outside world like a reverse 28 years later. All they do is poison us with their shit ideas. We adopt the North Korean intranet with the only available pages being Sky Sports, Lord of the Rings Extended Edition repeats, and of course, my own channel. Say what you like about Kim Jong-un, but his policies are at least for the benefit of his subjects rather than external It's not really true, actually, is it? You know what? Just wait for the next election. You absolute prats gave 16-year-olds the vote, then revoked their wanking license. What in the name of Jehovah were you thinking? They will mobilize on a grassroots level that will shame Malcolm X to get the people running on the ticket to restore it in power. Yes, you heard me right. An Arsenal supporter got outgooned by a cricket fan. Nothing makes sense in this godforsaken country.
Stay or go?
He has to go, blood. He has to go, blood.
And who would you bring in?
See, laws are gay. Everybody knows this. Half of them just exist to trip people up. It isn't that hard to get rid of some. Pick them out of a hat. For all I care, bring back public masturbation, the discrimination of the traveling community, and basically anything this rat was involved with. Society is restored. It really is that easy. The point I'm trying to make is that Parliament is sovereign, and all it takes to remove these incredibly unpopular policies is a simple vote. Now, I don't particularly trust whatever in the United States of Butlins the Reform Party even is, and I certainly don't trust Mr. Toad from the Wind in the Willows.
He's as dodgy as a Russian,
But overturning these laws would score them an awful lot of much-needed good faith and political capital, and it would be very easy to do. I don't see any reasons why they wouldn't or couldn't deliver on this. The only possible obstacle in their way of implementing policy is the civil service. Now, look, I get it. The man has less conviction than fucking Euron Greyjoy. But that is literally your fucking job. You know those Japanese guerrillas that kept fighting because they hadn't heard the war had been lost years ago? Well, that's these lots, the last bastion of the Blairite Uni-Party. Their entire purpose is supposed to be their political impartiality. If we vote for a fucking Maoist, it's your job to make sure the people starve. There would be just as much an obstacle for the Greens' more radical policies as reform. What you need to understand is that these people are lower in the state of nature than the art critic, and I think an arbitrary 1 in every 7.5 of them should be black-bagged in the middle of the night and fed to the Rancor just to keep them on their toes and back in line. They are not human, they are merely servitors. They do not have hopes, they do not have dreams, and they certainly do not have feelings. They are to humanity as orcs are to elves, twisted parodies. Whoever convinced them of their sentience is sick. They are more deserving of death's sweet release than the people who refer to their pets as fur babies.
You don't deserve to live.
Now, I possess a frankly irresponsible lack of knowledge on systematic institutional reform to talk about it on the internet, so I am just going to throw out the idea of hostages as the easiest way to achieve it. Am I right? Or am I right? Speaking of lobotomized bureaucrats, the NHS could do with some of the same treatment. Look, I know. I too look in the direction of my nearest hospital when the clanging of pots and pans calls me to prayer 5 times a day. But the arguments I hear surrounding it don't make any sense. What are you, a fucking blasphemer, they say? Just shovel more money into it. Look, it probably wouldn't hurt if you don't mind your taxes going up again, but funding doesn't seem to have ever really stagnated. I mean, it takes up 50% of all government service spending. This argument kind of distracts from the multitude of issues that it faces. Now, realistic reform does not mean opting for the barbarity of the US healthcare system. Nigel.
I love people.
He's taking people's number down and trying to get them arrested for getting healthcare.
I deny those allegations.
I am simply suggesting all we do is round up the old people. They are too expensive to look after, they are boring, they're gay, they need to go. Do not weep for them, they have had their time. Of all the countries struggling with an aging population and decreasing birth rates, it's a pity more people don't advocate for this option.
Pity. It was pity that stayed.
Shut up, old man. You inherited a golden age of humanity and fucked it into the ground. We've heard enough out of you. Send them to the camps.
Why are you boring me? I'm right.
It's probably worth criminalizing cousin marriage too. This isn't Crusader Kings, and the cultures that practice it here are costing us a fortune in birth defects, and it just perpetuates clan-like mentalities that are not compatible with broader integration. But most importantly, it's just fucking weird and makes our population ugly. That won't do at all. But hey, that's Norfolk for you, I suppose. Now, the bureaucratic bloat argument in the NHS is kind of overblown, but isn't non-existent. The deputy assistants, vice secretaries, fluffer is not essential to the well-being of Britain's subjects. Get 'em gone. Unlike what I'm doing, this is essential work. But more than anything else, you can't talk about the struggles faced by the NHS without talking about, you guessed it, Johnny Foreigner.
Animal qui vit parmi nous.
Étranger? No, merci.
Get yourself a can of Spam, some legitimately held anti-Germanic xenophobia, and roundhouse your wife because the year is 1948. The British Empire has emerged victorious but deeply fractured from the Second World War, and in order to tidy up imperial citizenship, the British Nationality Act was passed, allowing free movement throughout the empire, and in turn it unintentionally created what we have now mythologized as the Windrush generation, the beginning of this modern, multicultural Britain as we would retroactively see it. And as these West Indian migrants are stepping ashore to supposedly rebuild the nation, the government of the time was looking for reasons to dissuade this wave of migration. The Prime Minister of the time even referred to it as a sudden influx of coloured people. No, I don't mean not the gays, the other... Yeah, exactly. It's a strange fucking image to use, but yeah. And who was the Prime Minister of the time, you ask? None other than Clem the Gem. Now, if you don't know who Clement Attlee is, think of him a bit like Thatcher, but for the left. That'll get some of them. He's the bloke who pushes through the NHS, nationalises the country, all the rest of it. He is basically the founding father of the modern British left wing. So why was his perspective so antithetical to whatever it is the Labour Party stands for today? Nobody quite knows. See, it used to be a party for, you guessed it, the labourers, the illiterate, wife-beating racists that they see the working class as today. See, the concern for Attlee and his cabinet was that large-scale immigration would undercut British salaries, particularly for the working class, a simple case of supply and demand, and is that same reason that made the often big business-owning, mustache-twizzling conservatives of the time pro-immigration, which begs the very simple question, what in the living fuck is going on?
So no limit on migration?
Well, I think even that question about numbers is dehumanizing.
Every big business wants as much cheap labour as they can possibly get. And they, of course, don't give a damn about the community, about people's quality of life.
I'm so damn confused.
See, if we boil things down to their simplest form, as we are wont to do in this country, mass immigration is great for the GDP, not so much for the GDP per capita. So if you are traditionally left-wing and want to stop endless neoliberal capital growth that benefits the treasury and the 1% at the expense of the working man, then it looks like you're voting for, you guessed it, the self-confessed Thatcherites. And if you are traditionally right-wing, you are voting for the self-confessed socialists. This is where we are, folks. Now, yes, party politics does evolve, it's not that unusual. The Republicans freed the slaves, now they post cringe on Maine. But that makes each party's stance on wealth taxes make even less sense. Are you for the working class or endless capital growth? Which one is it? Because mass immigration and wealth inequality are a better fit than children and forced labor, whether you want to take this in a left-wing or right-wing direction. And no bastard talks about it. They are supposedly antithetical. Have I lost my mind, or does this not make sense to anyone?
Open borders. That's a Koch brothers proposal.
Now, there's a lot of things to admire about Attlee, but was he right in his stalwart defense of working class protectionism? Well, morally, yes, but in reality, not really. It depends how you look at it. The 20-year wage stagnation in the UK wasn't caused by mass immigration. Do you remember back in 2008? I don't know if do you remember when the global economy collapsed? You know, the one we never recovered from? Yeah, it was mostly that. It was mostly that. Mass immigration is more of a contributing factor, disproportionately so for the working class, particularly when you take inflation into account. But who really cares about the poor anyway? All they do is disagree with your university-learned doctrine. That being said, it is fair to say that our mass immigration model is scapegoated a lot in this country, but that does not mean to say that it makes any sense either. See, how many people do you think were aboard the initial ship that caused Atlee concern? 500 is the answer. If he saw this graph, the man would have a fucking conniption. Now, I might be an absolute pleb, but how in the name of Shea Gorath can housing and infrastructure be expected to keep up with 1 million people a year? This isn't fucking Anno. We can't just build the required new house every 5 minutes to accommodate these numbers. Isn't the entire world supposed to be struggling with a housing crisis right now? Where the fuck is Ja Rule when you need him? Now, before you start quoting Enoch Powell in the comments section, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There are legitimate problems with moving away from our migrant-dependent economy, and it's something the right would do well to be a bit more straightforward on. See, we in the UK have a decreasing birth rate, which means we need to import migrants to pay for our aging population. Now, I found out last week that migrants actually age in a similar way to us humans, which means you then have to bring in more migrants. This sounds like a fucking Ponzi scheme. Just round up the old people and shoot them in the town centre. What are we doing? Okay, a more cut and dry example. Everybody and their dog knows that the God Emperor NHS would die without its daily sacrifice of 1,000 migrant souls. See, 19% of their workforce is migrant-born, and if we look at the foreign-born population... Are you fucking kidding me? Guys, I think I figured out how to save the NHS.
Execute order.
On a serious note, we have resident doctors going on strike because they can't get jobs as a result of importing doctors.
It is wasteful and it is immoral.
To be clear, we are importing migrants to care for the migrants we are importing. This isn't even a Ponzi scheme, it's a fucking paradox. Why does nothing make sense in this country?
A day like today, I mean, it's not a day for sort of sound bites, really. We can leave those at home, but I feel the hand of history upon our shoulder.
Ah, yes, that does make sense, but it still doesn't explain why we can't just think of immigration the same as any other functioning nation. It's not that deep, bro. It's literally just a fucking slider that you adjust according to circumstance. These are not the only two options, if you can believe it. People looking to move their businesses here, certain high-skilled professions, maybe you do a good Arwen cosplay or something. These are the people we want. They do not come part and parcel with 10,000 Deliveroo cyclists and a complimentary gang. What are we doing? And who can afford all these takeaways? But it does neatly bring us to the part you have all been waiting for. Let's get to the racist stuff. The word on everybody's lips is assimilation. See, I have family from the Windrush, and they are the most racist anti-migrant people I have ever met. It's glorious. The levels of integration are off the charts. You love to see it. Based and Barry-pilled. But how were they able to integrate so effectively? Because despite the large numbers of people immigrating, 500,000 in total, it was over a prolonged period, 1948 to 1971. Denmark has proven that it's reasonably straightforward to achieve and in everybody's interest if it's piecemeal and spread out, rather than just creating reverse Benidorms. I get it now. Sorry, Pedro. Bad. Additionally, it probably wouldn't hurt to remigrate or repatriate those who, I don't know, want to bring back beheadings in the town centre for disobedient women or something. Actually, maybe they can stay. That is actually quite based, isn't it? But they do need to personally give me a handjob to make sure they are not homophobic. That seems fair to me. You can't be too careful.
I don't do if, buts and maybes. I do absolutes.
See, I was raised for most of my childhood by a same-sex couple, one of whom is disabled. I know, it's like the left wing built me in a fucking lab somewhere, isn't it? Now, I bring this up, firstly, to tell people complaining in my comment section when I use the word gay or retarded in a clearly satirical manner to shut the fuck up. I have the fudge-packing spastic pass, and you don't. And secondly, most importantly, from my personal experience, it doesn't seem to make much sense for the fluffy pro-migrant liberals to continue importing and aligning with often deeply conservative cultures that do, in more than some cases, harbour quite regressive sexual and gender politics. I appreciate it's a very uncomfortable reality, but it's a conversation we desperately need to have in this country, and a betrayal of the communities it does affect to fear talking about it. And it's this sort of thing that concerns people in regard to cultural degradation, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think most people care too much, if at all, about race in this country. The point is, just because you can speedrun the Iranian Revolution doesn't mean you should. You heard me right, the migrants are coming for our femboys. I repeat, this is not a drill. Vote Cthulhu, the destroyer of worlds. So, what do we do? Do we go down the path that destroys the economy as we understand it, or do we go down the path that destroys the culture as we understand it? You have 5 seconds to answer. That's right, neither. You see, GDP is cringe. You don't want it. All it does is go toward keeping old people alive and high-speed rail that never gets built. But so is GDP per capita. Wolverhampton Wanderers have seen 95% ticket sale attendance so far this year. People cannot be trusted with their money. What we need is techno-feudalism, and luckily, that is exactly where we are headed. See, I don't know if you heard, but the robots are coming for our jobs. The more people we invite into the nation, the more unemployed serfs we will have come the Industrial Revolution 2, Electric Boogaloo. Maybe that whole declining birth rates thing was a natural response to technological progression rather than a problem to fix. But what do I know? And in the same way that reform dogmatically proposes tackling immigration as an economically turbulent political cure-all, so too do the left with wealth inequality.
If Americans act against Afghanistan.
Take a look around, folks, and tell me what you see. That's right, you see a growing wealth divide that spurs on socialism and racial politics. You see celebrity candidates and a Britain in decline narrative. People, we are living in the 1980s, and very much like the 80s, it would seem the 2020s are once more the time to be right-wing. In the same way the post-war years, or the 90s, depending on how you look at it, were the time to be left-wing.
I can't believe you've done this.
As it stands, there is alignment, cooperation, trajectory, shared interest, vision. Regardless of some of the cracks that are starting to show, this is the current reality. The left-wing at the moment, and when I say the left-wing, I mean the left-wing, not whatever the fuck this is, I think it's fair to say is kind of in a bit of a rut. Now, why do I bring this up? Because it gets to the heart of why the current wealth inequality argument, despite everybody and their nan being in favor of a more fair and balanced economy, doesn't make any sense. In very simple terms, the Green Party's plan is to increase wealth taxes starting with those who earn £10 million, getting incrementally higher depending on your overall wealth. Now in turn, this money would be used to fund public services, pulling down the wealthy and raising up the poor. Equality.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Now, the right-wing criticize and dismiss these ideas as the politics of envy, which is just kind of reductive and disingenuous, similar to how the left just scream racist as a blanket statement regarding immigration. But it should instead be called the politics of confusion, because the longer you think about it, the less sense it makes.
What?
Everybody else is wrong, and only I know how to get to the promised land. See, why in the name of St. Jude would any of these wealthy people choose to stay in the country, taking what tax they do pay and the jobs they provide with them? Now, I don't want to put up too much of a defense of those who hoard the personal wealth of small nations like fucking Smaug the Terrible, while the rest of us get our RuneScape accounts hacked via keylogger watching our football club lose on a dodgy stream because we can no longer afford basic entertainment, let alone a fucking house. But the top 1% in this country already pay 30% of all tax contributions. Now, I bring this up firstly because the way they talk about it, you would assume they don't pay anything, and secondly because Sweden, Denmark, France, and Norway more recently, if I remember correctly, all abandoned their wealth tax policies for this exact reason. All it did was create very short-term benefits at the cost of a massive brain drain and capital flight. The only way it will ever be a reality is if there is coordinated international cooperation, the same as was achieved by the G20 with corporate tax. And I don't know if you noticed, but the left wing in America, if they had one, which they don't, is not only firmly in the bin, but will remain there for the foreseeable future. The same to varying degrees could be said of Europe and the West more broadly. I don't know about you, but I don't see Zach, did you guys know that I'm Jewish, but not one of the bad ones, Polanski? We get it, bro. Nobody gives a shit. Stop being weird. Dragging Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or whoever the fuck is in power at the time into his global revolution. But maybe I'm just a pessimist. Now, I don't say this to tear down or discredit the wealth tax arguments. It's good to see the left wing moving toward a more useful and representative pursuit as a paid-up, envious member of the Council Estate Scum Society myself. Don't get me wrong, taxing ambition is a bit of a confusing thing to do in the current climate, but most people sympathize with these ideas on one level or another, and the wheel will inevitably turn, putting the left wing on top again at some point in the near future. How do I know this? Because I have the foresight to flirt with fat girls at the gym, like buying Bitcoin in 2009. I can see the fucking strings behind the universe, me. Quality of life will continue to decline. Out-of-touch boomers will die, provided we stop doing this shit. Won't somebody please think of the economy? And this will be the dominant view. It's not rocket science, is it? Until that moment arrives, these policies would be nothing short of premature ejaculation. Except bad. This is the Leroy Jenkins approach to solving this problem.
Alright, chums up. Ready, guys? Let's do this. Leroy Jenkins!
Oh my god, he just ran in.
Save him! OJ, stick it clean!
What benefit could the Greens possibly have beyond maybe closing a few tax loopholes, which, don't get me wrong, is needed, but A, how am I supposed to get content out of that, and B, it pales in comparison to the scale of our immediate problems, particularly where energy is concerned, and that, JD's and Lentilman, is where things start to make even less sense. I mean, just have a look at these crusty goblins, would ya? Nuclear energy and weapon disarmament, leaving NATO if they can't turn it into a kumbaya club, rejoining the EU without any of the benefits we previously enjoyed, legalizing all drugs, open borders, and a welfare state, make sense of that, if you will, and a Maoist purge of the landlords. Okay, that last one is kind of based. But why in the name of our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, do you keep doing this shit? Stop punishing people for caring about your desperately important flagship policy with your insane supporting arguments. Where have we seen this before? The electorate is bigger than the self-hating half of Middle England. I have been to Latitude, I have seen these creatures in their natural habitat, and I left with the firm belief that halloumi is drastically overrated and that these people should not have the vote. Just back the working class. There's a lot of poor people, and there will be far more of them in the coming years. I am actively losing my fucking mind. Reform have a more coherent clean energy policy, and their plan is to abandon it. You are the fucking Green Party. What in the name of Zazima is going on? Now, I don't have much good to say about Starmer, or I trust him less than any country with the word democratic in their title, but the one good thing I will say about him is he has been half decent at handling Trump. Now hear me out, I am very well aware that he humiliates himself every time they share a screen, but that boy has irrefutably got a pair of lips on him, and the tongue of a starving anteater for the gooch. The results do not lie. Look, sometimes you gotta suck a couple of dicks, alright? It's not that deep. I'd suck a dick for 1 power plant, let alone 12.
Semen.
Do you know what I mean? It's gotta be done, boys, and these lot want to undo the only good thing he has actually achieved in favour of fucking windmills. Why? But maybe I am just not giving the Greens enough credit. Do you know how much energy is required to power AI? A shitload. Ain't no robots taking our jobs if we don't solve the energy crisis, and our aging population will solve itself too come the winter. 1000 IQ move from the lisping hypnotist. Now, one area I will credit these dusty NIMBYs for is how open they are about their more globalist agenda. Yes, I know globalism is desperately cringe, but it's far better than the globalism by the back door we saw with the Uni Party. Now that being said, you don't have to push for global solidarity at the expense of the national interest. Listen, all I'm trying to say is we need a little bit more national socialist. Wait, no, don't fucking click that. Now, I know what you're thinking, so that's it. We on the left just have to fiddle while Rome burns. No, but it all depends on how based you're willing to be. See, I have found the best solution is often the simplest. Option 1. I propose, and hear me out, we invade the tax havens, extract their wealth, and publicly execute those who dwell there. What the fuck are they gonna do about it? They're all pussies, except the Irish, but they've never really made their numbers back from the famine, it shouldn't be too hard. Option 2, the Occam's razor approach. Instead of eating the rich, I propose we eat the poor. Now, they won't taste very nice, they're either ribs and dick or built like seals, but apply some logic here. You eat the poor, well, there's no poverty, is there? It really is that easy. Cut out the middleman. See, in the same way that solving mass immigration requires these useless bastards without a scruple between them to deliver us to the promised land, the same could be said for these forest green supporting weirdos with wealth inequality. They simply do not possess the minerals for either approach, which only leaves option 3. They follow their anti-neoliberal and pro-working class rhetoric to its natural conclusion by maximizing the fairly extensive wealth taxes we do already have, by utilizing them alongside mass immigration measures. Exceptionally rare, Nazbol W, but that just makes far too much sense to see them doing that either. I love it here. Who wants more money for themselves when it could be going to Israel instead? Which brings us to our next point.
Blood for the blood god! Blood for the blood god! Blood for the blood god!
Now, beset on all sides by crises as we are that threaten to implode the very nation, do you know what my primary concern is for the next election? That's right, Palestine. Now, I appreciate this is momentarily blown over, but I don't think any of us see a world where this doesn't periodically reoccur, and I genuinely admire the delusion of anyone that looks at this ridiculously complicated conflict and feels morally decisive about one side or the other. Are you on the left? Well, you must support Team Palestine. Are you on the right? Well, you must support Team Israel. But unless you got lost in the sauce along the way, then you've probably gone full circle. Now, I'm not trying to sound edgy when I say that this entire saga utterly confuses me. There has been a war in the Congo for 30 years. Over 1 million have been taken into slavery, 10 times that have been killed, and hundreds of thousands raped, and I've not heard one bastard in our entire hemisphere mention it, let alone use it to fill the howling chasm where their personality should be. Now, I don't say this to moralize. If I'm deeply honest with myself, I care more about the issues in my own country, despite how trivial they are by comparison. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't make any sense, but luckily the solution is very straightforward. You see, if we just consult the old clock here real quick, you'll see, oh, would you look at that, boys and girls? They say history repeats itself, and it's about that time. Long overdue, if you ask me. Now, hear me out. If you can convince a bloke to blow himself up in Manchester, of all places, you can convince him to blow himself up for the Holy Land. There will always be a reason to kill and die for this place, and I do not say this as someone who opposes religion. We don't need the Holy Land anymore, bro. We've got the fucking books. It's just categorically more trouble than it's worth. Now, there's only one surefire way that I know of to end generations of revenge begets revenge begets revenge. That's right. We pave over the entire region and turn it into something useful like a big old flume park or something. Then we relocate the people in the area to the tax havens we cleansed. Palestine gets Ireland, and Israel gets Switzerland. You wouldn't notice much difference, I assure you. This isn't Reddit, we're not here to win a moral debate, we're here to get results, and I'll be damned if this solution doesn't achieve them. Peace through annihilation. It's gotta be done, lads. We've got domestic issues to focus on, if you don't mind.
You ever drunk Baileys from a shoe?
What?
You want to come to a club where people wee on each other?
Now, as you would expect, the illegal immigration or asylum crisis, depending on where you stand, follows the same talking past one another rhetoric as the mass immigration debate. So that one side from an empathetic position and the other side from a pragmatic position. Now, I'll probably end up making a video dedicated to this subject in the future because the levels of confusion here are simply off the charts. So I'll keep things quite brief. Basically, we are exercising our proud and long-held moral duty by providing safe haven for those fleeing persecution and horrific violence from the most dangerous and repulsive places on Earth. The only problem is that we are doing so by gunpoint of countless overlapping treaties that didn't take into account the endless and depressingly often deceptive nature of the current circumstances, with no self-preservational clause to exit without international condemnation. So basically our choices are: continue our perpetual duty of care with no end in sight and watch as the costs continue to rise alongside anti-migrant radicalization, or stop and everybody calls us gay, but diplomatically alienating us and perhaps leading to sanctions. But that's quite drastic. Now, this sounds like quite the predicament, I hear you say. Surely the proposed solutions put forward by each side of the respective aisle are perfectly sane and well considered. I will let you be the judge. On one side, we have the sandal-wearing nonces, and they argue that the best solution would be to, you know, stabilize every war-torn, poverty-stricken region on Earth, despite the fact we can't even get our trains to run on time. Well, those people can go back to stabilizing their subreddit because they sound like moderators to me. On the other side, we have the Barrys. They argue in between each slap that connects with their wife's head that we have no moral obligation to these people whatsoever, and they must be sacrificed to the Taliban for our own survival and the greater good.
The greater good.
Neither of these crusty jugglers are thinking far enough outside the box. If you ask me, there are only two realistic options before us. Option 1. the Council of Elrond. Basically, we gather all manner of backward continental species and simply modernize the treaties that obligate us. Maybe it's time to stop applying one-size-fits-all international policy that wears the nation like a condom as nothing more than a vehicle to achieve their goals.
Oh no.
After all, we all share the same crisis, and despite our differences, the one thing I'm sure we can all still agree on is the eternal proverb that I assure you I didn't coin: what could a Belgian possibly know about being a human or having rights? Now, the fact that we are still part of a human rights court from a union we left 10 years ago is boggling, but it might not really matter whether we leave or not. A broader reform is necessary regardless, and it's not the only treaty that binds us. That being said, for all of the strengths of the EU, they are still cucks, and that shouldn't be forgotten. I'm sure they'll make modernizing a few out-of-date treaties harder than it needs to be in favor of ethics or some other gay European nonsense, which leaves option 2, the Millwall approach. If you share in my belief that anybody who does not reside in the Sceptred Isles is a shit-flinging barbarian, then why do you care if we are globally demonized for abandoning these detrimental treaties that we could otherwise align to our values and circumstances? Hated, adored, never ignored is the mantra, as a cripplingly insecure piece of shit once said.
A lion doesn't consider.
It is possible to be self-interested and house these people cost-effectively without having to depend on the polarizing use of deportations. See, this is a policy I've concocted for reform. A bit of a remix, an expansion pack, a DLC on their Ascension Island plan, and I think it's up their street. Let me know what you think about it. We step up our efforts to encourage these people to come in ever larger numbers, but we set up like a Battle of Britain dowding system to identify them on arrival. They know the rules, they broke them. Gotta catch 'em all. It is what it is, lads, to Azkaban you go. When queuing etiquette fails, so too does the nation. We separate those who are legitimate asylum seekers and parachute them into the Nordic countries or something. They've probably been through enough. Give them a fighting chance. Then we take the leftover economic migrants and house them on our scattered barren territories all around the globe. Get us some colonies going. There's no reason housing these people can't pay for themselves. A bit of honest labour in the mines never did anyone any harm. I mean, look at Australia. They're doing all right. Citizenship should be a privilege rather than a right. If you want to earn it and therefore a place off the island, go forth with the blessing of God and retrieve the ears of 10 Frenchmen and bring them back to Canterbury Cathedral to add to the pile at the foot of the altar. That seems pretty fair to me. You have to adapt to our ways. Simple as. The name of the policy, you ask? Well, it's a bit of a mouthful. We jolly well ended the slave trade, we reserve the right to bring it back. How about that for a slice of fried gold? Let's kickstart the economy. Who's with me? But wait, there's more. Who better to oversee this project than Tony Blair himself, father of the Uni Party? Unfortunately, Thatcher is dead, so he'll have to do. He will have the best medical professionals on hand to ensure he slaves away well into his 200s. We will cybernetically augment him if we have to.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh.
The Dutchman must always have a captain. Part of the ship, part of the crew.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Right. Listen up, it's like this, boys. Things are going to be pretty shit for a while, but in the long run, as Vera said, there will always be an England. We'll be just fine. Why? Because the madness is beginning to subside. Now, I genuinely believe that England will win the World Cup next year.
He's done it!
So don't put your house on anything I say, but I do think there is good reason to be cautiously optimistic about the prospects of Britain's future compared to most places in the world. It's easy to forget the issues we face are not unique to us. It's just that people don't make videos about them because no bastard speaks their language or cares enough about them. Rent-free, lads, learn to take a fucking compliment. I even made a video about it. The thumbnail is a bit... Look, the game's the game, alright? I'm trying to launch a channel here. But the point is, I appreciate we are all determined to be depressed right now. Complacency supports the status quo and all the rest of it. It hardly rounds up the migrants or reopens the gulags, now does it? But listen, right? Don't be gay all your life. The economic uncertainties we have seen post-Brexit and COVID scaring off investments seem to be waning. I see a story like this in my feed at least every week now, and moving forward, we have an economy far less affected by protectionist tariff bullshit. We are not as politically crippled as Europe or as dysfunctionally divided as America. Yes, we have a political divide in this country, but by and large it's pretty healthy, productive, and stable. I mean, have a look at these backward continental fucks, would ya?
He's a master of martial combat. a solution-driven man.
See what I mean? There's no hope for these lot, they're fucked. What can I say? Should have stayed part of the union. The point is, the supposed death of the uni party is seeing us move back to a functional democracy. Sure, the Greens are insane and reform are useless, but they are far less extreme than their counterparts abroad, and a step in the right direction, even if they never hold power. A more progressive left and conservative right that keep each other more or less in check is in everybody's interest. It allows a country to progress in a sane and representative manner, provided they can rub their dicks together and find common ground, then move the fuck on. Something we're actually pretty good at doing. I mean, have a look at trans rights. Very recently, both sides came together, set it in law, now nobody fucking talks about it. Bosh.
How many genders are there?
I don't know. I just got here.
There is no reason why we can't achieve the same with, say, immigration, now that it's at the forefront of mainstream politics. Or when the time comes, wealth taxes, in the same way we did with gay rights, women's rights, healthcare, abortion, all the rest of it. Believe it or not, you can solve these issues without becoming communist, fascist, or worse, centrist. I mean, have a look at the asylum reforms that just recently passed. Now, it's not to say problem solved, move on, but it's a sign of healthy politics. And if it does come down to it, there are benefits to a populist political landscape. Downsides too, but some benefits. Some politicians that aren't institutionalized might be exactly what we need. Believe it or not, Parliament can actually just do shit. Who cares if it's unorthodox? And this could be key in solving a lot of the immediate problems that we face.
Have you tried kill all the poor?
The point is this: meaningful change takes a longer time to achieve than the patience either side has left. Understandably so, but realistically, you're both going to get a good amount of what you want. Don't make me point to the wheel again. Things will be shit for a minute or two, but a bit less shit than most other places in the world. And what more could you reasonably ask for? With the world going to piss, the country you want to be in is the one where the poorer and more depressed you are, the more developed your sense of humor. What I'm trying to say is that our poor people could beat up your poor people, and beans are pretty cheap. It could always be worse. And when they inevitably are, well, the only thing that stands between us and a brighter tomorrow is a bunch of old people. Push comes to shove, well, I reckon we can take them, and I think that's a good note to end on. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like, give us a sub, get stuck in the comments. I do make the effort to read them. I spend most of my free time making these simply for the dream of sincerely answering xenophobia when asked what it is I do for a living. So it really does go a long way. Thank you very much for watching. See you later. God, Sadiq Khan's doing a shit job, isn't he? Not to worry, we have... Wait, is that fucking Giroud?